Yo, what's up, family? Fallen Marvel here, and welcome into your review of Marvel's Spider-Man Homecoming. It's the latest iteration of the friendly neighborhood wall crawler, and we get to see him in the same world that the Avengers are in. And I have to say that I was very excited for this movie. Damn, man, they made another one. They spitting the things out like sunflower seeds. Yeah, we're about, 3 years removed from the last Spider-Man movie, so Anyway, let's go ahead and get into this review. As usual, you get the good, the bad, some spoiler talk, and my overall thoughts. So anyway, let's talk about Spider-Man Homecoming. The lead of Tom Holland was great. His portrayal as Peter Parker / Spider-Man, to me, felt very genuine, and I bought that he was a 15-year-old kid with spider powers, and I have to say I enjoyed his presence. We really get a chance to see how his character progresses after the events of Civil War. We even get a small look at everything leading up to his involvement in Civil War, which I thought was great. So we see, where his mindset is now, where his motivation is, and we essentially get the humble beginnings of his road to becoming the hero that we all know that he has the potential to be, which is really good. So you're saying we don't get the spider bite, the with great power speech, or the Uncle Ben death? Like, we don't get any of that? Nope. We didn't get any of that, and to be honest, it really wasn't needed. Civil War was his origin. I feel gypped. Marv, we really don't need to see Uncle Ben die again. We've already seen it twice on the big screen already, not to mention the many references in the animated series, okay? It's a dead horse that does not need to be beaten anymore. In addition to Tom's performance, everyone else that was involved in the movie did a pretty good job. I really like Michael Keaton as Adrian Toomes, aka the Vulture. And of course, Downey comes back as Tony Stark for a little bit, and just so you know, he's only got at most 15 minutes of screen time throughout this movie, so it's, for those that complained about the trailers and all that in the poster, it's not Iron Man 4. With that being said, everyone that was cast in this movie had a role to play, and they did their job as far as I'm concerned, so it's not really much more I could ask for. Maybe you can ask to not have another reboot again. Here you go. By my calculations, they'll be rebooting it next month. Marv, I am not about to get into specifics with you about the how and the why this happened. It's old news. We've been through it. Let's move on, please and thank you. Okay. Go ahead and continue. Just don't be surprised when you wake up tomorrow with an aneurysm. So as for more positives, I have to say that the progression in the movie was handled really well. You can understand the motivations of the characters and what they set out to do, and you really get invested in what they're trying to do. So I have to give them props on that front. The action scenes were done really well. There were times where during some action scenes, like, it was very lighthearted, and other times where it got really tense to where you had concern for a character. And I mean, Spider-Man looked really good. Vulture looked really good during those scenes, and it was good action. I mean, I can't complain. I got some complaints. Well, Marv, we haven't gotten to that section quite yet, so hold your horses. The best way to describe Peter in this movie as a hero is complete novice. There are moments in the movie during his heroics where on one end he does a decent enough job, and on the other end he completely screws up. And that shows how much further he has to go to become the Spider-Man that we all are accustomed to. And I think they did a really good job with showing how much more he has to learn. In addition to that, we also see how Peter tries to balance his normal life with being Spider-Man. Yes, we know he has all these great powers and he aspires to be an Avenger, but at the end of the day, he is still a 15-year-old boy, and we get that sense and longing, and all of that encompasses being a 15-year-old high school student. So I have to really commend him for making this, it's essentially a coming of age story that also happens to be a superhero movie. So, applause. Now we're gonna move on to the section that apparently Marv has been dying to get to, which are the negatives. So anyway, let's talk about the bad. Okay, to be honest, it's really hard for me to pinpoint things in this movie that I didn't like. I expected as much from you, FM. I think you better let me take over this section. Okay, Marv, by all means. Number 1, Shocker, don't like him. Number 2, Flash Thompson, don't like him. Number 3, Michelle, don't like her. Number 4, Spidey Tech Suit, don't like that. Number 5, Peter Parker is 15, I don't like that. That's all the negatives I got. Let's move on. Marv, that's seriously all you got? What else is there? That's what I didn't like. Okay, we're gonna try this again with a more subjective point of view, and I guess I'll piggyback off of what Marv claimed he didn't like. Now, Shocker, I think he played the role he was supposed to be. He was essentially a goon for Vulture, and Shocker has always pretty much been a goon, so there's not really much to go on from there, but as a goon, he did his job. Flash Thompson was different. He wasn't a sports jock in this. It was a different angle they went with it. He was still a douchebag in the movie, but it's not like they made him as imposing as he usually is. But he was there. He did what he was supposed to do. That's all I could say for that. I'm not really sure why Marv pinpointed on Michelle, because I felt that she did what she was supposed to do. I mean, she was essentially an acquaintance of Peter. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily say friend, but obviously they knew each other pretty well. But it's not something they focused on, because obviously, like, Peter's like main objective as far as love interest was Liz. So I mean, they did what they were supposed to do with her for this movie. That's all that can be said. Moving on. The Spidey Tech Suit. I like the Spidey Tech Suit. I think for me personally though, I felt that he relied so heavily on that suit, but at the same time I had to think about, okay, he hasn't had his powers for very long. On some level, he's still trying to figure them out. And when he got that suit upgrade, it helped him a great deal. So it somewhat became a crutch for him, but at the same time, when you're 15 years old and you got powers, you're still trying to figure them out. Sometimes you might need a crutch. That's my perspective. I don't know. Lastly, so what if Peter's in high school again? As long as they do the story right, I have no issue with it. Granted, could have like thrown him in college maybe. I mean, I don't know. But I mean, these are just minor gripes. I don't really think these are like really bad things that affected the movie. And to add to that, Marv, I think you're really just being petty. Well, damn it, FM, I have a God-given right to be petty. So I'm gonna keep being petty. Well, I suppose, Marv. So anyway, even though I do like the tone of this movie to where it's somewhat of a coming of age story and it is more lighthearted, I really feel that the stakes could have been raised a bit. I really felt that it still was in a safe place to a degree, but I don't really think that was a really big deciding factor into where I would say it's a legitimately bad thing that overall affected the movie. I just felt that, you know, with it being the way it is, like, it still felt a little safe, but essentially it's a Spider-Man movie that is catering to a family. So, you know, it is what it is. I mean, that's the only thing you can really do with it. Either you like it or you don't. What else is there to say? And that's the point that I was trying to make. I made those 5 points of why I don't like it, and that's why it misses 5 points out of a 10 scale. Yeah, okay, Marv. Anyway, that concludes the bad, so we're gonna get into some spoiler territory now. So if you don't want to hear the spoilers, I'll put a tag. You can fast forward it to set time, whatever it's gonna be. Anyway, let's spoil some stuff. There was an article going around talking about Zendaya's I'm pretty sure I'm pronouncing that right, that Michelle, the character, that they were saying that Vulture was her biological father. At least there was an article circulating that, which I was kind of pissed about because somebody had to share it and spoil it for everybody. But the twist was he wasn't her father, he was Liz's father, which I thought was an interesting twist because I'm sitting there thinking like, okay, when this is gonna, when are they gonna reveal that, this kid that doesn't really like too many people or whatever, whatever have you. But that was the twist. So I thought that was interesting, and it kind of threw people off the scent. So it really seems like Marvel, more or less, or whoever was leaking it, whatever, they were kind of like doing a rope-a-dope. Like they think, you think you're about to throw a left, but then you throw a right. So that was cool. And then, of course, Michelle, she's not Mary Jane Watson, but she's still MJ, which was interesting. So, a lot of y'all people that's mad about her supposedly playing Mary Jane, well, she's not Mary Jane. Her name is still Michelle, but she's still MJ. So you guys are gonna have to deal with that. So aside from those interesting twists, the only thing that I have to mention that there was a reference to the Howling Commandos. I believe the character in First Avenger, I think his name was James Morita. He was like the only Asian guy that was in the Howling Commandos. They had a reference to him because the principal at Peter's school seemed to have a picture of him in the background, like I think it was like on top of a file cabinet or whatever. So it appears to me that the principal is a descendant of a Howling Commando, which I thought was a nice touch. So that was a nice little Easter egg they dropped. Then of course you have the Captain America cameos with the instructional school videos that they had, which were pretty funny. It's like the way they presented it was funny, and they showed it in like very somewhat odd situations, but it was funny as hell. But the last time they showed it, well, I might as well just bring this up. Okay, the after credit scenes, which don't really give us much information, but the last Captain America's instructional video they showed was the very last after credit scene, and they literally trolled the audience with it. And I was like, you know what? Well played, Marvel. Well played. This last spoiler revolves around the lead up to the final confrontation between Spider-Man and Vulture. And I felt that this was a really important scene. There's a slight exchange between Spider-Man and Vulture stalls long enough to remotely call his Vulture wings. And he uses them to knock out these pillars holding up this structure, and then the structure comes down on top of Peter, and then Vulture escapes. The scene cuts back to Peter buried under the rubble, and he completely reverts back to a scared kid. He pulls off his mask, he's crying, he's calling for help. He doesn't know what to do with himself. And he just so happens to look where he threw his mask, and it fell in a puddle of water. Half of the mask is floating up in the water, and the other half is just the reflection of his face in the water. And it's at that moment that he is reminded of who he is. It was then that he willed himself to lift the structure off of him with all the strength he had left. And it was a very awesome scene. And what made it more awesome was the fact that it was a direct callback to an old Amazing Spider-Man issue, which I believe the issue number was 33. I have to say that this was a very memorable scene because you could feel his vulnerability of being trapped, and that moment of clarity to where he had that calling to be a hero, and he did what he needed to do to get out. And I have to commend him for that. That was a very, very good scene. So family, for my final thoughts on the movie, I have to say that it was well directed, it was well acted, story was good, there's a lot of development for the characters. It's definitely worth seeing in the theaters because this is only just the beginning of this story, and there's a lot to branch off from here. So it has loads of potential, and it's definitely good for everybody to go see. If you're a Spider-Man fan, please go see it. If I have to say this, if you're okay with change, you would definitely enjoy this movie. If you're a purist, you may not like it, but I mean, hey, I'm being subjective here. Like, the thing is, I'm a big Spider-Man fan. I have been for a long time, but I'm being subjective. The movie was very good. It was entertaining. It did its job for what it was supposed to do. So, with all that being said, I give Marvel's Spider-Man Homecoming a marvelous score of 8 out of 10. The movie definitely met, if not exceeded, my expectations. And if I'm going to rank all the Spider-Man movies we've had up to this point, I put Homecoming in the top spot purely for overall quality, because it was consistent, it was good development, I enjoyed the story, I enjoyed the character growth, and that's all I can really say about it. Like, I thoroughly enjoyed this movie. So, you know, that's all that can really be said. I see you drinking the Kool-Aid like everybody else. And you know red is my favorite flavor, so always remember that. So guys, that does it for my review. I hope you all enjoyed it. If you've seen the movie, go ahead and post below. Tell me what you like, what you didn't like, if you plan to see it, or whatever have you. You know I look forward to interacting with you guys. So, as usual, you guys know what to do. Go ahead and like, subscribe, all those wonderful things. And I will check with you guys later on down the line. But until then, keep following my advice to go nerd, but nerd responsibly. This is your boy Fallen Marvel, and I am the completely unbiased Spider-Man fan Marv, and we are out.